Getting a woman is one thing, being able to keep her is another. There are a lot of things that make it difficult for the average man to keep a woman interested in him for a long period of time. And by far the biggest threat being the presence of competition in the form of other men. Every man in a relationship with a woman, whether he realizes it or not, is under constant threat of losing his woman to another man that is willing to poach her from him. And since the beginning of time, men have come up with different evolutionary strategies to safeguard their women. Think of them like a bunch of best practices so that other men don't come and get the jump on you and steal your woman. This set of strategies is what we refer to in the study of evolutionary psychology as mate guarding. They can be preemptive or reactive in nature, but the purpose is the same, to make sure someone else doesn't steal your woman. What we're going to be discussing today is what I've come to find is the best mate guarding strategy backed up by years and years of experience and experimentation. Mate guarding strategy so airtight that it would be practically impossible for anyone to even have a chance to steal your girl. And is shockingly simple to implement, no matter what age, race, gender, or personality type you happen to be. In fact, it's so simple, you've seen real life examples of this. You just didn't realize that's what you were looking at. So pay close attention, but before we do that, we have to discuss the origins of mate guarding and how it's evolved over the years. See, back in caveman days, long before the conception of civilization, a caveman's ability to guard his mate came down primarily to his capacity for violence. You see, at this point in time, the social contract that we have in civilization today hadn't been formed yet. Laws weren't set up or enforced, rights weren't a thing, and concepts like consent weren't even thought up yet. So the only skill that the cavemen of that uncivilized era could rely on was their own ability to be dangerous themselves. Mate guarding, in its inception, was a physical sport. And I'd say that it was a good thing the way it was happening, but you gotta appreciate the simplicity of that. Big bank, take low bank. That's about it. Now, I've been talking about mate guarding in tandem with the inception of civilization for a particular reason. And that's because the inception of civilization, aka the formation of the social contract, changed mate guarding forever. See, the social contract is something that we've all signed up for in modern civilization, whether we realize it or not. It's an unconsciously agreed upon code of conducts that we use as the blueprint for interacting with each other. The way I think about it in my mind, it is the spinal cord that holds up and supports civilization. Because if we don't all agree to play nice with each other, then civilization no longer exists. And if civilization no longer exists, then what really is the difference between us and the animals? Make no mistake, the formation of the social contract is by far the most important point in our human evolution. It is the sole reason that our species has been able to successfully cooperate and thrive as well as we have. All our modern conveniences and advanced technology would have never been possible if human beings didn't start cooperating at the highest levels. And we have the social contract to thank for those high levels of cooperation. It's also severely mitigated the need for us as a species to resolve all of our conflicts with violence. And that mitigation of violence is precisely why all the strategies that fall under mate guarding had to change forever. Because in a civilization where physical violence is no longer the agreed upon method for resolving conflict and is now in fact looked down upon, men can no longer reliably lean on physical violence or the threat of it really as a viable strategy. I mean, sure, there are men out there that still believe that the threat of violence is still a viable strategy for mate guarding. But the more I explain how mate guarding works and how it's evolved over time, the more you'll understand just why that strategy is no longer viable. Pay attention. So what does mate guarding look like today in the thick of civilization where the social contract is being firmly upheld? It's moved from a more physical dominance, more direct kind of strategy, more of a subtle, indirect manipulation of the social contract. Let me explain. You see, the major thing that happened when the social contract was formed was the evening of the playing field between the physically incompetent and competent men. Now, in the advent of society, the physically incompetent now have a chance at acquiring and guarding a mate because the criteria for being able to do those things is no longer based solely on just physical competence. Intellect, and specifically your ability to navigate social settings, is now a valuable resource. Especially your ability to disqualify other men in the eyes of your potential mate and hinder their ability to poach her from you. To put it simply, mate guarding is now primarily a psychological game. Mate guarding has become a mental sport where you can psychologically discourage other men from taking your girl by using and manipulating the laws of the social contract. And this game has two different levels, a broader macro scale and a smaller individualistic micro scale. We'll begin to really see how this works in practice when I point out these few examples. A very good and common example is the use of race. If you're clever enough and you can persuade people into believing that they should make decisions just like you because they're the same skin color as you, then on a macro level, you've essentially disqualified any potential competition that has a different skin color than you, at least in the minds of the potential mates that subscribe to your thinking. Another example is the use of political beliefs or alignment. You can disqualify potentially large groups of men from your potential mates by exposing to them that those particular group of men don't have the same political beliefs as she does. Another example, and I would have to say the best example so far, has to be the use of religion. Because for people that subscribe to religion, God is the ultimate authority. And if someone that is an authority on the subject of God tells you that God doesn't want you potentially stealing his wife, then it almost quite literally eliminates any chances of that happening, doesn't it? Now, all three of those examples I just gave, those are macro level mate guarding. Let's now give more examples for specifically the micro level of mate guarding. On an individualistic level, a great example is the direct character assassination of potential competition. That is saying something about your competition that disqualifies them as a suitor from the mind of your potential mate. I'm sure we've all had that one friend in the friend group that starts acting very weird when girls come around. Maybe he picked on and made fun of you, or began to say not so glamorous things about you when the girls were around. Maybe he didn't necessarily say anything bad, but he went out of his way to let the girls know that you already have a girlfriend. That right there, that's what I'm talking about. That's a perfect example of mate guarding. Another example of micro mate guarding you've probably heard of is checking her phone. Checking her text messages, her social media apps, her locations, they all fall under this. It's basically physically taking away her ability to jump ship by reducing the number of chances she has to do so. She can't possibly find the chance or the time to actually jump ship if you're always monitoring her movements. Or at least that's the logic, right? These are all perfect examples of mate guarding on a micro individualistic level. Now, we finally come to the most important part of this video. What exactly is the best form of mate guarding? Well, in order for us to figure that out, we have to first talk about something I've been avoiding throughout this video. Women! Think about it. We've been talking about mate guarding this entire time, and not once have I actually talked about how women respond to it. And here's the crazy part. Women are actually put off by mate guarding. Is that shocking? Well, it shouldn't be. It's actually kind of obvious why. On an evolutionary level, women are primarily attracted to men for their strength and power. Biologically speaking, what a man represents in a woman's life more than anything is an ability for her to increase her chances of survival, which is why women seek to align themselves mentally, socially, financially, spiritually, and otherwise with the strongest man they can find. And when I say strength, I'm not just talking physical competence either. I'm also talking about psychological strength. She wants to be with the man that represents the biggest threat to other men. She also wants to be with a man that realistically and logistically she doesn't really deserve. That's how she essentially knows that she's getting the best bang for her buck. Literally. When you have a need to mate guard or do anything really to keep a woman around you longer, you're subtly communicating to a woman on a subconscious level that you're both a man that she definitely deserves or she can do better than, and you acknowledge that there are other men that you see as bigger threats than you, which is why you need to apply mate guarding strategy to begin with. So when you, for instance, try to badmouth another man in front of a woman, all that communicates to her is that you think that man is a bigger threat than you, which instantly makes her shift her focus from you to that other guy. So to put it simply, and as ironic as it may sound, the best mate guarding strategy by far is to not mate guard. When it comes to women, the best defense is a great offense. If you get her so worried about what you're up to, you'll never have to worry about what she's up to. Introduce excitement, tension, and competition anxiety into the mix. Apply some reverse psychology and make yourself the mate that needs to be guarded, not the other way around. A woman will never find the courage to leave if she knows for a fact that you will not be affected by her exit. It's been Jason, Favorite Scientist. Do with all this information what you must.